welcome along to my review of the Argento Cut from the recently released second side box set of Dawn of the Dead. Now this is found on disc 2 and is the longest cut of the film presented in this box set. But before I get into that, I just want to talk a little bit more about the Dario Argento cut. I found out a few more little juicy morsels in my comments section down below in that video. I'll link it down below so you can look at that video about the Argento cut and what I found out about that film. But there's two comments on there from John at Movie Collector and also Korashira Ishii, and they talk about the film process and what the film stock that was used, and they explain the meanings behind it into positive. And also, if you can hear some building work, it sounds like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre outside. I do apologize for that. Hopefully the microphone won't pick that up too much. Okay, so also there was a new subscriber, so welcome along to Stephen Burgess, and he was talking about, I mentioned that on the soundtrack to the Dario Argento cut, there was a few instances where the sound sounded like it was echoing, which I looked at on the other discs, this disc and the theatrical cut, and it didn't do that in there. And he offered this explanation for that, which I found very interesting. And this is one of the best things about asking the community some of these questions, and you'll get a good answer from people. I've got a lot of good response to that video, and also in the comments section I do think that a few things have been touched on that I did ask questions about in that video. So Stephen Burgess said, apparently the sound on the audio cut, the Argento cut, has built-in glitches from when it was recorded. Also in the scene where Roger and Peter find the keys, and when they first arrive in the mall, the line "keys to the kingdom" is almost muted. I'll agree with that. I remember thinking on hindsight that you couldn't really hear it, and you could hear it much more in the Argento cut. So this was present on every release in the Argento cut. So what Stephen's saying is that the sound glitches is probably just the way it was cut, or the way it was edited, and I'm not saying unfortunately, because it doesn't detract anything from the film. If the film all was like that, it would be very off-putting actually, but it's not. It's just a little thing that I asked in my last video to say, does anybody know anything about this, and Stephen offered this response. So thanks very much, Stephen, and welcome along. But this version here we're going to talk about today is the Argento cut. Now there's I've wrote some notes down here, so forgive me if I look to me it's me right, your left, to explain what I found out about this cut. Now it's presented with 1-track DTS HD master audio. Now weirdly enough, you would think I watched the Argento cut in 5.1, which sounded really good, but this 1.0 mono soundtrack, it sounded really good as well. In fact, you couldn't really tell them apart. So I know another subscriber said that the audio wasn't as great as they thought on the surround system. Now I'm watching on a sound bar, and it seemed okay to me, but I don't get the whole surround sound bit of it, which I haven't got that system anymore. So that person looked at this one and said it didn't really sort of do much of that. So at this point, maybe the audio for it is good enough at 1.0 mono, but I found it to be much, it wasn't detracting from the film at all, and I did really enjoy it. So that's that. We only get one soundtrack on here, you don't get any more. Also as well, the running time of this film is 2 hours 19 minutes, so it's a full 20 minutes longer than the Dario Argento cut. Now does it suffer for that? Personally, I don't think it does. I tend to think of it now as the Argento cut as a kind of separate movie. It's his interpretation of Dawn of the Dead, and it benefits from his, if he wanted to make what he wanted to make was an action film with tons of gore, then he succeeded at plenty. He took out all the comedy and all the social references, consumerism, took it all out, and his version of the film is really good. If you want to watch that type of film, then go for the Argento cut. This one here is the full version. Although, is it the full version? I know there's a 155-minute version of it it's actually on YouTube, and I'm going to watch it at the end of this. Now I was reminded this by another subscriber, my good friend, my brother in Go, Davey. And he told me about this, the fact that this thing existed, and it reminded me on to think, yes, it does. There is a version of it on on YouTube. I'm going to watch it right at the end of watching all these, probably at the end of watching the special features as well. Might give it a week or two for these ones to sink in. And I don't know possibly how they can get 155 minutes if they put all the cuts together and all the little bits, because there is little bits in all different versions that don't appear in other versions. I don't know how they could get 155 minutes. So if I watch the 155 minute one, will I see a lot more stuff than I've never seen before? I'm interested to find out. But I don't know anything about that cut. I've never seen it before, but I know it exists. So, okay. So the Cannes cut. Now, the reason I always thought that this was the director's cut, that's how I always was told it was. This is the director's cut of Dawn of the Dead. But strangely enough, it's not the director's cut. This version here was submitted to the Cannes Film Festival in 1978. And I think they thought, it was done, it was like a rush through of the original film and just sort of not cobbled together, but it was put together. And maybe when it was shown, George A. Romero himself thought it didn't play right and it was a bit too long. So what he did was, then he went back and he created the theatrical cut, which you could say is the true director's cut. That's the version that George A. Romero wanted everyone to see. Now, in this one, the Cannes cut, that's why I think it's called the Cannes cut, because if it was called the director's cut, it would not... it's not a good representation of what George A. Romero wanted. He has shot all these bits, probably more bits as well, but he didn't feel that these bits needed to be in the film. He needed to have a trim on it. Dario Argento went a bit further and took another 10 minutes out for his version, and it played differently. So the theatrical cut will play differently from the Cannes cut. But the Cannes cut itself, you are treated to quite a lot of extra material, about 12 minutes of extra material, which personally I like. I've always liked the Cannes cut. I'm going to call it the Cannes cut now, even though I'm struggling after calling it the director's cut for many, many years. In fact, even on the Arrow version, I would like to remember what it was called on the Arrow version, because it wasn't called the Cannes cut on there, I don't think anyway. So I used to have it, but I don't have it anymore. I didn't want to double dip on this one. This one is going to suffice me forever. It's just absolutely brilliant. So, the Cannes cut. I've got some notes here, and I've put down that it's actually it's the first one on this disc that features HDR10 plus. Now, that's a brilliant thing to have. Now, I don't know if my TV shows HDR10 plus, but I've got to admit that when I play things on with HDR10 plus, you can kind of see a little bit of an improvement. But I imagine people who have the systems that can find these things out would mean that they can benefit from that. Maybe I don't benefit enough. But I found personally that the picture quality is a little bit behind the Argento cut. It's less warm and it's not as sharp. There's no dirt in it. I think the grain's a little bit more prominent as well, which isn't a problem. But I did think that when I was watching it that I found the picture quality in the Argento cut, to me, was a bit more enjoyable. I found that I personally preferred the way that the Argento cut looked, and I think that the picture quality on the Cannes cut, as I've seen in all the other Cannes cut releases or bootlegs of them, they always seem to be a bit lesser in the quality. I don't understand why that is. It's probably... Now, I did find out, I've got another thing here for how it was shot. I don't really understand it, if I'm honest, but I'll read out what it is. It's a 4K scan of the theatrical cut, original camera negatives, plus the extended colour reversal into negative of the Cannes cut, and they've been put together. A colour reversal negative, or CRI, is a motion picture film duplication process designed by Kodak in the 1970s as a workaround for the existing processes of creating film duplicates. Originally intended for the faster pace of the television commercial industry, it began to see the use in major motion pictures of the mid-1970s. It also goes on to say, because CRIs are considered a temporary negative, their chemistry is not meant to be as stable as prints, and because of this, they are prone to rapid fading, usually on the average of within 5 to 7 years. As a result, new masters have had to be created from the original camera negatives accordingly. So I don't really understand that. I've got to admit I don't understand that. Maybe John and Kurashia Ishii can weigh down below in the comments on this video and give me a little bit more information, a bit more not so technical, a bit more in layman's terms. But I'm getting a bit from that. If it says that elements that they've used aren't as good as the original camera negatives, does that mean that they've kind of had to bring the picture quality down a touch to make sure that the whole thing runs together? I don't know, but it does seem that this cut is just that little bit down from the Argento cut, in my opinion. So yeah, so this movie actually shows how good the Argento cut is, because there's a big section taken out at the start of the film where our four main protagonists meet this renegade police section, and they are trying to steal stuff, as sort of our main four characters are as well. They're leaving their posts in the army or the SWAT teams. Also, the two people are leaving their jobs in the TV station, and also they bump into a couple of characters that were police, and they were on the run as well. So it's a bit of a face-off there. Now this scene's quite good because it features Joseph Pilato, who is in Day of the Dead, and he does this whole, he's quite good in it. He's great in everything he does, and he's great in Day of the Dead, so he's in there as well. But the Argento cut exercises all of that out. Now to me, that's it's quite good editing, because when you watch the Argento cut, if you've never watched any other ones, you would never know that this scene is interlinked with all of the bits of what Dario Argento has taken from that scene. So it shows you that sometimes the Italian editing on some of the films is really, really shoddy, and you see a lot of poor editing, and you can see jumps, and you know that something's been taken out. But in this one, it just looked like seamless. So that was something I picked up from that huge scene that plays out in the Cannes version, which is exercised from the Argento cut, and you can't see what it is. So that means that for me, the Argento cut is well edited. But these little bits in there add some backstory to the characters and to the story itself, which I find quite interesting. I did really enjoy them. When I first saw this, I couldn't believe the bits that I was seeing, how much I was seeing. So I said, yes, you get a lot more expedition on the characters. There's a lot more behind their stories that you see in this version than you do in any of the other versions. If you want to know a bit more about how they tick and the dynamics between the group changes in the space of this movie, this version is probably the definitive one of that, to get the whole thing about Dawn of the Dead, and the whole thing behind their journey into the supermarket, how the supermarket plays out, how they're in euphoria to be going around the shops at their will and take anything that they want, which is a great thing to have. I remember seeing that in the cinema with my friends, and we all thought all the time, imagine being able to go up to the local the local mall, and just running riot and picking anything you wanted out of that thing and just having it in your possession. But it shows you in this film how quickly they got bored of all that, and then they've just developed actually into sort of zombie-like people, which is quite a good allegory actually. Also, I've noticed that when Flyboy is falling asleep in the chopper, there is more in the Argento cut about that. The way they've cut it in this one, I'm only talking about seconds, but you see Stephen falling asleep at the wheel, and Peter bumping him to say, you've got to keep awake, because you know you're dealing with my life as well as your own. And that has a slightly longer bit. It's weird that the Argento cut has slightly longer bits as well as that. I thought that the director's cut, the Cannes cut, would have all the longer bits in it, but funny enough it doesn't. That's just a little bit of a note that I took down there. And you don't hear the Goblin soundtrack on this version until they're actually in the chopper going towards to gas up at the disused small airport. So that's interesting that the Goblin soundtrack is in there. It's used about 6 or 7 times, but it's not as prominent obviously as the Argento cut. I don't mind that because I do like the sound cues that you use in this version. I think the sound cues in this version really suit this film. George A. Romero's version of this film with this music is perfect, whereas Argento's version of his film with the Goblin soundtrack is perfect as well. Now the sequence in the small airport is great, I find. You get the full version in here with the zombie with his getting the top of his head cut off with the helicopter blades. And what I've always liked on this one is the fact that Flyboy's trying to shoot things and he's really poor at it. His character arc is quite good actually, because he goes from being quite useless at this, because you've got to remember that these two trained SWAT people, soldiers, this is their bread and butter. They do this for a living, and I think Stephen Flyboy is trying to sort of get to that stage, and I think he's trying to impress his girlfriend Fran as well, and to a certain extent, and he's failing miserably for most of the film. But he does grow into that role of being, you know, quite a good action figure in the movie, where he starts out being quite poor, and he's also getting bumped out of the way by Roger, who's a crack shot. And the shot when he shoots the bald zombie, which I'm presuming is the zombie from this, the little sound effect to that is absolutely brilliant. I just love it, and it's not present in the Argento cut. It's a different sound effect. Thing that is always one of my favourite bits in Dawn of the Dead, and it's in all of the versions. 42 minutes into the film, there's a zombie that gets shot. He's got wearing a sort of like a beige, dark, like a light brown shirt, and he gets shot in the chest, and he sort of stumbles back on one leg. It's a really good way of getting shot, and it stands out for me. Now, one of the things that I remember about it, and I'm sure this happened, could be my mind, but I'm sure it happened. There was a film review program on TV called Film 79, 78, 80, 81. Every year, and Barry Norman would present it, and used to show clips from the movies on the start of it. And I'm sure it must have been about film 79, where it had the little clip of that zombie getting hit in the chest and going back for a couple of seconds in that thing. And I always loved that clip, not knowing where it was from. And when I watched it maybe a couple of years later, I thought, that's the scene. And so if you ever want to know what my favourite zombie getting shot in Dawn of the Dead is, it's that fella. And you know what I mean. And if you don't, when you watch this and you see it, you know exactly what it is. So as well, I was talking on the other video about Argento's sort of presence being look like it was in the presence of the movie, was to be the colours. There's a couple of sequences where there's 3 colours in the scene, which is a great Argento thing that used to like putting 3 colours into the same scene, and red, green, yellow, red, green, blue, and very bright, very sort of neon. And there's a couple of times when it's in this film. Now I thought, is it just in the Argento cut? But actually when I've watched the Cannes cut, you see the whole thing in there as well. So maybe it was just me thinking that, or maybe Argento did have a sort of a presence in some of the photography of this film, which I don't think he was even present during any of the shooting, apparently according to the extras. But it's just something that I thought, is it in the Cannes version? And it is in the Cannes version. So that's just one of the things that I picked up on there. The Cannes cut, the full version, which is the longest cut at 2 hours 20 minutes, it flew by for me. I thought this one was going to be the one that I think, well, I could do a watching the theatrical cut. I could miss this one out. But I didn't find I was sitting there. I didn't find I was bored or anything. I mean, I've just watched the Argento cut recently. I've watched this one. I'm going to watch the theatrical cut tomorrow. So, and I'm not sick to death of watching this film. You think watching a film 3 times would be a chore, but it's not. And I think the theatrical cut, in essence, is going to be the best version of the film. That remains to be seen. Will I enjoy it more than the Argento cut? But for me, I'm putting the Argento cut as a sort of separate entity. The Cannes cut is a separate entity. If you want to see everything, get a little bit more exposition on the characters, and you want to see a bit more of this like missing scenes and also things that get the story a little bit further on down the road, the Cannes cut is a great addition to that. So my next video will be the theatrical cut. So thanks very much for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with the theatrical cut of Dawn of the Dead, and then I might move on to the extras. I watched some of the extras and I've really enjoyed some of the extras. Are they different to the Arrow version? Yes, they are. I can't remember exactly what was on the Arrow version. I do remember the Arrow version extras being really good. Hopefully, I think I was talking to Leon Talks Film, and I will pronounce it Leon Talks Films, but it's actually Leon Talks Film. And he was saying to me that maybe the extras for Arrow are on YouTube to watch. I don't really want to go and re-buy the disc. If it was cheap enough, I would buy it just for the extras. But for me, if you have got the Arrow version, you might want to keep a hold of it for extras. But the extras on here are really good, I find, and they're more than plenty for me. So okay, that being said, I will see you next time, and you take care.